All right. So let us proceed further on our topic, that is UI policy. So you know about UI policy, what UI policy is?
Form behavior. We can, hide the fields or
Okay.
show the fields. We just want to change the form behavior. So
Okay.
we use UI policies.
All right. So let's proceed further on this. So what is UI policy? Like you mentioned, so that was right. We generally maintains or defines behavior and visibility of fields on a form, like mandatory, visible, or read only. For this, we don't require any certain scripts to be written, and we can use conditions directly as available. Like we can provide some filter conditions without writing any script, and as well as it executes after client scripts, right? So this is the feature actually, what it executes after client script. But most of the time, suppose we want to do field mandatory, visible, read only, so it's not required to use client script. We can create UI policy instantly, because scripting definitely will consume your execution time or while the form loads. All right, so that may impact your performance also, because already we have a direct configuration which can be done using UI policy. So generally, without scripting, we can use UI policy. It's the better thing. And as well as, it's not like that we cannot use scripts under UI policy. We can also use scripts under UI policy. All right. So there might be some case where you might have to use scripting inside UI policy as well, right? So like this is like baseline incident form, and here you will see the UI policy is executed for number, configuration item, and priority. So you will see this one is the baseline form. All right. So we have number as editable mode. So we have done here read only. Configuration item here is non-mandatory, but here we have done it mandatory. And in this baseline, we have priority as displaying here, but here we have hidden our priority. So all those things has been done using this UI policy, right? We can do it directly. And same thing, we can write script as well on client script, but mostly people used to do UI policy only for this kind of things, because this comes under best practice as well. So whenever we are required to do mandatory, visible, read only, so UI policy is generally used. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So like I mentioned, like there is a UI policy scripting also. We can write some script under UI policy as well. So we have ability to write some script and execute advanced behavior. Like we can do like show or hide sections or tabs, like which we see in our form. In a normal form, we see there is section, so we can show or hide those sections based on those UI policy scripting. And under this scripting section, we can utilize whatever JavaScript that can be executed on client side. We can use it in UI policy. And UI policy, I will tell you why it is require some time to use JavaScript under UI policy as well. So I will tell you why it is required. All right. So
Yeah.
yeah. So let's move further. So now here we will see how UI policy execution happens. So trigger specifies when to execute. Trigger in the sense when to apply condition. If you see, there is a condition category is software, right? So here what happens is, like, this is the trigger, like as soon as the category is software, right? So this UI policy will get executed. Whenever category is software, this UI policy will get executed. And this will be running on load of the form itself. or while changing the value also it will work. And UI policy, after writing this trigger condition, we can provide UI policy actions or scripts, like what has to be executed based on this condition. So here they have written UI policy actions. So they are doing a subcategory as mandatory here. Whenever category is software, they are doing a subcategory as mandatory, right? So this way we have seen like UI policy action is like what action we have to perform based on this UI policy. So that is called UI policy actions, right? And here we can see we have related list actions. Those related list can also be hidden based on those UI policies, right? So this is also a very good thing to use where we don't have to do any scripting to hide any related list. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And as well as we can write our script while clicking on this advanced view, and we can get run scripts checkbox. As soon as we will click on that, then scripting section will get appeared and we can write the scripting as well. So every field in the record can be evaluated even when it is not visible on the form. All right, so those field also will be get evaluated, the field which is not available on the form. So that is quite simple also. So generally people use UI policy on existing fields generally because it is executing on client side scripts generally. And UI policies, we don't have any name field. So we use short description field to just define what this UI policy is all about, what this UI policy does. So we can define everything on this short description. Like they have already defined, subcategory is mandatory if category is software. So we this will be understandable to each other person who would be working whenever you are not available. So it will be easy for him to debug like for what purpose this UI policy is written, right? And they mentioned not all UI policies require scripting. So I have already mentioned this, like UI policy generally don't require scripting. So there is very less chance where some scripting is required, where so much of backend validations are there. So there might be a case UI policy require scripting. All right.
Yeah.
So any questions here or
No,
query?
no, all good.
Okay. So here we will see more details like when to apply. So a UI policies generally execute on evaluation of these conditions, right? So here they have mentioned assignment group is network, state is one of new or in progress. And then here we have UI policy applies to all form views. Otherwise, the UI policy is view specific,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we have already selected it to apply to all form views, right? And we can execute this UI policy view specific as well. All right. And here you can see we can apply UI policy actions when the form is loaded and when the user changes values on the form. I have told you on just before, like UI policy will be executing when the form is loaded or when user changes any values on the form. All right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the important feature, or we can call it as a feature, because if you see, it reverses the effect of UI policy actions when the condition evaluates to false. If suppose assignment group is network and we are doing some state field as mandatory, right? And
Mm-hmm.
condition is assignment group is network. Then what happens is like if assignment group is network, then only that state field will be mandatory. And if any other assignment group is selected, then that state field will not be mandatory, because this UI policy will also execute when this condition will return false. So this checkbox is for that. And this is the good feature actually. We don't have to write conditions on reverse condition. So we can directly use reverse if false, and this condition will work either true or false. All right.
Yeah.
And this checkbox tables that extend the table inherits this UI policy. This is the thing, like if suppose we have to inherit some UI policy from parent table. So for that purpose, this inherit checkbox is there. Uh, this is, I think this will not be used. Like if I frankly tell you, I never used it in my projects till date. All right, so this will
Mm-hmm.
not be used. They will. It is generally created. A table is specific for most of the projects. Yeah. So I think that is UI policy trigger when we can define certain conditions or we can see what extra configurations we can do using the checkboxes which is visible below. All right.
Yeah.
Right. So let's move further and see UI policy trigger with client side script. Like I have shown, like when you move to this script section, you can see the run script checkbox is there, right?
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we will click check mark this box, then in this two field will be appearing: execute if true, execute if false. Suppose we have written any condition on when to apply, so here we can check like what execution is required when it returns true and what execution it requires when it returns false. So here if our condition is true, so they have executed these all things, like they are adding some comments and they are doing it mandatory. While rejecting an approval, they want comments to be added on approval form. All right. And here what they are doing is like, if suppose they have already provided the comment, so they are hiding the field message, like this comments is already added, so they don't require to provide any message to the user. All right. So
Mm.
this is executing when condition returns false. Okay.
Yeah.
Now we will see like what data you can see or use in a UI policy. So we can like generally declare local variables in a script and we can use how we want to use it. And we can use predefined client-side global variables like glide form and glide user. I have already mentioned those glide form, glide user on client script session, right?
Yep.
So you are aware like how we can use glide form, how we can use glide user,
Mm.
and
Yep.
there is G underscore scratchpad. So this I will explain you when we will discuss about business rule. So I will tell you how this G underscore scratchpad will be used. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have any questions here, right?
No.
All right. So here we will check what are the difference between client script and UI policy, because both runs on client side, right? So we have to see what would be the difference between both kind of client side execution configurations, right? So if we will see both client script and UI policy will execute when the form loads, right?
Mm-hmm.
And client script execute on form save, submit, update. All right, but UI policy doesn't work that way. UI policy work when the form is loaded or some value is changed on the form. All right, so that's why this UI policy will not execute on save, submit, or update. And execute on form field value change. Yeah, so field value change, client script will also work and UI policy will also work. And client script can access old value of the field where the value is changed, but in UI policy we cannot do that. And execute on list field value changes. So this works with the help of client script, but in UI policy it doesn't works. Execute after client script. So clients after client script UI policy will get executed. First, if suppose there are the case on same case, client script will also there and UI policy. So both the case, some script is there which will be executed. So on that case, our UI policy will get executed after the client script. All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And scripting, client script generally require scripting. Without scripting, we cannot use client script at all. But in UI policy, we cannot, it's not
We don't
required to
require, yeah.
use, yeah, it doesn't require to use any scripting there. Because without scripting also, we can do multiple activities like visible, mandatory, and read only, right?
Yeah.
And we will see what are the best practice of using UI policy. So here we can see we have to use as few UI policy as we can use, because there might be a case we have written multiple UI policies for particular field. So we have to avoid that kind of thing, because what happens is like sometimes, because same thing we will execute using multiple UI policies, which will take our form to be loaded very slowly, right?
Mhm.
So load time will be less. So we have to use very less UI policies. It's not like that we just creating UI policies again and again for same kind of executions on particular form. All right. And if suppose we have to define what our UI policy does, so we have to use short description. So short description, we can define what is the purpose of this current UI policy. All right.
Mhm.
And if suppose if we have to document that UI policy for with more details, so we can use description field as well. Though description field is generally not added on the UI policy configuration form, we have to add it using our form layout. And we have to set on load to false if you do not need to execute on page load. If suppose we don't want to execute our UI policy while the form is loading, so you can just select on load to false, so that UI policy will not get executed on load of a form. All right.
Yep.
And it is recommended whenever we are applying any conditions, so we should generally use condition builder whenever it is required to use conditions. So it's better to use condition builder. All right.
Yeah.
And last one is like evergreen. So we have to comment our script wherever we are doing any script anywhere. So comment, we have to write like for what purpose that particular line or particular area is working for what kind of activities. All right.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's all about this UI policy. And now I will show you like how we can use it on our forms, how we can utilize this UI policy features. All right.
Mhm.
So let us move to our ServiceNow instance. Give me a minute. Let me have some water. So far you have understood all, right?
Yep.
Everything like as part of UI policy,
Yep.
what it does. Yeah. So let's proceed. And I think I will use problem form here because incident is having so much of scripts on backend. So there are two ways of creating UI policies. Either you can search here directly UI policies. So you can see system UI, and under system UI we have UI policies, right?
Yep.
So
From
we
the
will,
configure.
yeah, so we can use this way. And other way we have other way we have right click here, configure, and then UI policies. Where is it? Yeah. So as soon as we have clicked on that, so we can see we have our UI policies loaded here. All right. So let us try to execute some of the UI policies for those fields. and we will see how it works. So I have clicked on new button and you can see our UI policy configuration form is displayed here. All right. So you can see we have short description here where we can define what is the purpose of this particular UI policy. All right. And we can see we can write when to apply. So this is the condition builder, which I was mentioning. We can, whenever we are using any condition, we can use this condition builder. All right. And here we have onload checkbox, global, reverse if false, and inherit. Right. So see, we can click here and we can write UI policy view specific as well. All right.
Yeah.
So it's global. So it will be executing on all the views. And we can check this reverse if false. And if suppose we don't want to use this UI policy on load, so we can just uncheck it. But mostly UI policy will be executed on load and on some field value change. Most of the time it will be running same way. All right. So yeah, so let me, and here we have a scripting section where we can write our scripts as well. So here you can see we have run script, UI type, mobile service portal, desktop, all. So we generally use all for most of the scripting which we use. All right. And here we have when to apply. So let us try to execute something here. If suppose, let
Can
me
you
first,
can you hide the other information from here, the tab? Yeah,
this one.
other information. Can you hide the tab based on the UI policy?
Yeah, so this tab will be hidden. For this, we have to write a script like we have used in client script, right?
Mm-hmm. The other
So
day we tried,
yeah,
we
yeah.
use something here again.
Yeah, so that we can use, and why that will be very much useful in terms of UI policy, because same script can be executed on true and false. It's not like that you have to write conditions separately. So
Yeah,
here you can define the conditions if it is executing true. So you can display this other information, and if it is returning false, so it will display the other information. But in terms of client script, what happens is like we have to write one more like for if it returns false, so what you have to do. So we have to write some extra lines of code there, right?
yeah.
So let me try to execute basic UI policy without any conditions. So let me do set fields mandatory read only and visible. So this is just sample short description for this script, and I will save it.
Mm-hmm.
Without saving this UI policy, you cannot add UI policy action. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see we have two tabs enabled here, right? So here for using this UI policy actions, I will show you how we can use it. So we have to select some field. So suppose we will take this category. So suppose I am taking this category field and I am setting it as mandatory. All right. And I will submit it. Now we can see our UI policy action is written for this category field and it is setting mandatory. So let me try to reload this form and see whether our category is going to mandatory or not. See, category is mandatory now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So this is happening using this UI policy. And now let me try to use another one where we can do visibility. If suppose we will hide which field, yeah. So suppose I will hide this code field. I will hide this code field here. And now I will do read only for which field? Suppose I will do read only for configuration item. So yeah, let us try to create one more configuration item. Yeah, read only. And here we can do one more thing. We can clear the field value as well. So I will show you that as well. New, and I will clear description field. Clear the field value. So this also we can do using our UI policy. All right, we can clear
Mm.
the field value on some conditions. So this will also be much useful for some of the requirement where you don't have to do any script. And here I will show, I have written all four actions: mandatory, visible, read only, and a clear value. Right. So I will show you this UI policy related list actions as well. So I will create one UI policy related list action as well. So suppose we have these all related lists, so we can hide one of them. So suppose I will try to hide attached knowledge. So you can see we will be having attached knowledge related list, and we will do visible false, and I will do it submit. All right. So we have done five things here. So let us see whether it is executed or not. So let me try to reload this form. All right, we can see category is mandatory and configuration item is read only. All right, and this is the code.
Description clear.
Yeah, description is cleared here, and we have this code field.
Related
Yeah,
list.
code field I have written visible true, so it is visible. But let me try to change this visibility.
False.
So I will add this false, and we will reload it again. So we will see this code field is hidden, and configuration item is read only. Report and category is mandatory. Description value field value is cleared off, and we can see attached knowledge related list is also not visible, right?
Yeah.
So there was one related list, right? This attached knowledge here, right?
Mm.
So that also got disappeared. So we can hide those related list based on certain conditions here on the form, right?
Can
So
we
this,
hide the sections in UI policy?
yeah, we can hide this section. We have to use same script which we have used.
Oh, okay. We have to use the script again. Same script, the
Yeah,
client
yeah,
script we used.
yeah. So we can use that under scripting section, or I will show you. There is already one UI policy here that is created for my sample purpose. All right. So you can see priority is too high, and we are hiding section display analysis information. All right.
Mm, mm.
So whenever it is executing true, I am doing this section display as false. I will show you how.
No,
Let me
I know, that's fine.
end this. Okay. So now this is just sample alert. Okay. And now you see analysis information is hidden.
Yeah.
All right. If we change the,
But which one is better? Is it UI policy or client script? But if you have
yeah,
any certain
line script.
condition, you can
Yeah,
go with
UI.
the script,
Yeah,
UI
UI
policy.
policy is like we can define what we can do when it is executing true, and here we can just type. Suppose I will give you example. Here we can do both way. Just I will enter here and I will mark it as a true. I will save it. I will show you. Let me reload this form again. And now you can see we are other information is displaying. All right. And
Mhm.
now I will do priority as 2. So this is hidden. But as soon as I change this priority as 4, this other information will be displaying instantly.
Yeah.
Okay, that can also be done that place also, but we have to write if else condition. But here we don't have to do any if else. We just
Mm.
added condition priority is 2, and here we are defining what to execute when it is returning true and what to execute when it is returning false. All right.
Yeah.
So you are clear on this part.
Yep.
All right. So I think our UI policy part is over, and
I
now
think we didn't check on the
okay.
view
So you
based on
want
the
me
when
to
to
check?
apply. Yeah.
So you want me to check that way?
Yeah.
Let me check what all view we have. Hmm. Let me check first what this view does. Okay, so this view is not having much of the things. So we will try on this mobile view. Okay,
Mm.
we will do assignment group as mandatory. Yeah, so we will do this field as mandatory. So, okay, so let me use this it only. I will remove this all actions, delete. Here also I will change. We don't have attached knowledge, so we will use outage. So we will use outage here. Outage. And now is it not changed? Yeah, it is changed. And now UI policy action. I will do assignment group as mandatory. Assignment group as mandatory. And I will do submit. So we have to set view now for this. If suppose we have unchecked this global, and now I will select view, mobile view, right? We are using this mobile view, right?
Yeah.
So let me save this. And now we will load that form and see whether assignment group is going mandatory or not. So let me try to reload this.
Yep.
So you can see assignment group is mandatory and outage related list is gone. And now let us try to switch back to default view and we will see. Okay, let me first reload it. Okay, for changing view, we require some value addition here. So let me add something. All right.
Yep.
Because without filling mandatory field, we cannot move anywhere. So let me click on default view. Anyway, we can check. See, assignment group is not mandatory here. An
Mm.
outage related list is not hidden. And now again, I will switch back to mobile view and we will see assignment group as mandatory. See, star is there and we don't have outage related list here, right?
Yeah.
So these are very much useful things so as to like eliminate any performance issue within the form, because whatever, if suppose your form is loading very slowly, so that means there are a lot of client script or UI policy which is impacting the form load, right? So this is generally the case which happens whenever our form is loading very slowly,
Yeah.
right? And if you see, we have one of the concept like data policy as well.
Yep.
So I will show you what. So it is similar to UI policy, but I will, if you see, these are the data policies and data policies. If we will click on new, and now I will show you about data. So for data policy, I didn't create such document, but because it is same kind of thing. All right.
Yep.
So data policy will enable to check the data consistency by setting mandatory and read only. So we are generally doing mandatory and read only for fields using our data policy. So why this data policy is there? Because same mandatory and read only can be done using UI policy. Because if suppose we want to load some data into the system using our Excel or any data sheet, right? So using that, if suppose there is some mandatory thing we have to fill, so we can apply data policies. So you can apply all the rules whenever the data is entered into the system. So data policy generally maintain the data consistency for all the records. And if you see, we have data policy here, but it can be executed on UI policy as well. So there is a checkbox. If suppose we are writing this data policy, and we can use this as part of UI policy as well. So data policy is the thing which can be executed for mandatory even with the list layout as well. So sometimes if suppose any field we have to enter, so this thing we can use a UI policy, data policy for maintaining data consistency. So I will show you how this will be executed. So let me write make field read only, suppose, because this is used for read only and mandatory. So let me try to save this record. And here it is not like that this will be executing on load or on load or on change of some value. It will just do the validation for read only and mandatory to maintain data consistency. And it can be executed on condition returning as false as well in reverse. And now here we can see there is a related list data policy rules. So we can define new rules here. And you can see we have only two options here, read only, mandatory, right? So let me use which field I can use. Suppose I will use configuration item. All right. So there is a configuration item.
Why we have a UI policies there, and why we need to use data policy again?
Because see, I will tell you, because UI policy is executing whenever we are doing any work on form level, right?
Mm-hmm.
That the UI policy will not work on list layout.
Okay, okay, yep.
Okay, whenever we are updating something or doing anything, so those data policy will maintain the consistency of the data, and data policy rule will be applied when we are loading any data from some Excel, right? So at that point of time, we can apply those data policy rule. So suppose I am doing this configuration item as read only. All right, so let me try to reload this. What happened here? Okay, CMDBCI. You will see this configuration item is read only. So this will work on form as well because we are using this UI policy on client. So we have already marked it as checked. And if you see, it is applying to import set, it is applying to SOAP also whenever we are integrating any data. So at that point of time also this data policy will get executed, but UI policy will not get executed at that point of time. So we can call it as a partial execution for server side because it does lot of things while loading the data or while using any updation or insertion on this table. So this configuration is read only. Now let me reload this form again. So there is this list, and we can see, suppose let me add something here. See, data policy exception, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I would have written UI policy for this configuration item as read only, so it will allow to edit this configuration item if this was part of UI policy.
Yep.
So this is the data consistency because this is the exception. This should not be done, but that we can use using our data policy. So that's also used for not much time, but sometime it will use, not all the time. So this concept should be known to everyone because we can maintain data consistency for some of the records wherever it is required, because there might be some case or scenario where you might have to use this data policy.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So for that purpose, we generally take a use of data policy. So I have used it once on while loading our data. So I have used this data policy, and as well as where client tells, okay, we want this field to be mandatory whenever people are editing from from this list. So at that point of time, they want some field to be mandatory, right? So we can do that way, but generally that requirements doesn't comes. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so this was all about UI policy and data policy. So if you have any questions, you can tell me related to UI policy and data policy.
Okay. Yeah. No, I don't. That should be fine.
So you understood both the concept, UI
Yep.
policy and data policy.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that's all about these both things. So you can do one thing. You can create some of the UI policy and data policy on your personal developer instance, and you can tell me like if you have any questions, doubts, or queries related to these topics. All right.
Okay. Yeah.